Hello and welcome to this video, and this video is going to be called Please Help Bill Laswell, a jazz fusion legend. So many viewers of this channel, you know, you are all jazz fusion fans, and we talk about Weather Report, we talk about John McLaughlin, Chick Corea, Miles Davis, Frank Zappa, Alan Holdsworth. But there's a musician that I hold in the same category of all those great musicians. I think that this musician is one of the greatest fusion musicians of the 20th century. I would put him in the top 10. In terms of 1980s fusion, I would probably say he's the most important fusion artist of the 1980s and early 90s. And it is, of course, Bill Laswell. Now, Bill Laswell has given so much to music over the years. He's supported so many artists. We're going to get into this on this video as we go. But what's really important is that I think Bill's suffering with health problems at the moment, and he can't afford to catch COVID. And this is curtailing his career as a performer, artist, producer. And so musicians across the industry are calling out to get people to fund, go to GoFundMe and fund Bill Laswell so that he can keep going, and most important, keep his studio going, which is such an important studio in the history of jazz fusion. This is really important. I'm going to try and explain why on this video. Now, if you really want to know about Bill Laswell, I have on this channel, and if you Google Andy Edwards Bill Laswell up on the search bar, you will find it, a huge video where I try and negotiate through this musician's incredible career and trying to get it into as many nooks and crannies as I can. Right, on this video, I am just going to gush at you about how important this musician is. And why am I going to do that? And why is a musician of such stature in a situation where we have to give the guy money to keep him going? This should not be happening, because Bill Laswell is a national treasure to music. International treasure, in fact. These musicians should be being held in high esteem. I've seen this happen so often to so many musicians. Bill Laswell is, to me, is really one of the greatest jazz fusion artists of all time. The reason why his name doesn't come up in the same breath as Herbie Hancock or John McLaughlin or Chick Corea is because this guy has done so much, because he cannot be pigeonholed. If he had just been a bass player, and he's an incredible bass player, if he just forged a career as a bass player, we would be able to say Bill Laswell, the bass player. But we can't, because Bill Laswell's also a producer. He's a producer that's produced Iggy Pop. He's a producer that's produced Motorhead, Mick Jagger, right? He produced and wrote and basically birthed the tune Rocket by Herbie Hancock, which really changed the face of hip-hop production, pop production in the 80s, okay? Now, if I was to pigeonhole as being the guy that did Rocket, that does a disservice to Bill Laswell, because Bill Laswell is also a supporter of artists. So many artists that we know and love found a home with Bill Laswell in the 80s, and he was able to support musicians like Bernie Worrell, Bootsy Collins, George Clinton, Peter Brotzman, Sonny Sharrock, you know, all these incredible musicians. But to say that that's what he does gets nowhere near the breadth of this guy, because this guy is also a world music artist, and he's one of the great fusers of world music. He's worked with Indian musicians, African musicians, Latin American musicians. But if we were to say that that's what he does, he's also repackaged, remixed music by Fela Kuti, by Bob Marley, but also in terms of this channel by Miles Davis, Alice Coltrane, Carlos Santana, John McLaughlin, Tony Williams' lifetime, and in my opinion improved on those artists. Now, this is something that crops up over and over again when we start to discuss Bill Laswell. Recently I did a video for Sea of Tranquility where we looked at the 70s Electric Miles albums, and I said that the remix album by Bill Laswell, Panther Lasser, is perhaps the second greatest album. That's where I rated it. The second greatest Miles album from the 70s. Right? Laswell understood what Miles was doing. He understood that sort of Afrocentric, futuristic fusion. He understood it in a way which the producers and the engineers at the time didn't understand. So he took the master stems from In a Silent Way, On the Corner, from what else would it be, from Get Up With This, some of the stuff from Big Fun, and he mixed it again. And he mixed it in a way where you could hear what he thought was Miles's vision, and I think it improved on those recordings. Bill Laswell, and this is also really important for this channel, Bill Laswell has mixed or remixed the second Tony Williams Lifetime album, Turn It Over. Right? Now, we all know that nobody ever heard that band properly because it was never mixed properly. But it was mixed properly by Bill Laswell. And if you get onto YouTube now and search for Turn It Over, Tony Williams Lifetime, Bill Laswell mix, you will find it. The record company would not release this. This was a crime. Because if you want to hear Tony Williams Lifetime as it should have been heard, the only place really to go is to that Bill Laswell remix. He has remixed, John McLaughlin fans, he has remixed on this album, Divine Light, I've just pulled it out here, tracks from Love, Devotion, Surrender, and from another solo album by Carlos Santana, which he made with Alice Coltrane, which is called Illuminations. My memory had to catch me up. This is an incredible recording. The Laswell mix of Life Divine is the greatest recording from, I think, that lineup. It improves his mixes of Love, Devotion, Surrender. Sorry, his mixes of A Love Supreme and Life Divine improve. And this is a mix where he actually took John McLaughlin's guitar solo off A Life Divine. But I think Laswell's right. I think he's been able to pare that down to the real juice. And we suddenly hear Billy Cobb's drum sound at that point just emerge, you know, and we could just hear the beauty of that. So, very important to anybody who's a fan of fusion. Right, so I'm now going to explain a little bit about who Laswell is. Now I've whetted your appetite. If you don't know who he is, if you do know who he is, then of course you are agreeing with me and shouting at the screen, yeah, you're right, Andy, Bill Laswell's so important. This is not right. This is not right. That we are having to have a GoFundMe for Bill Laswell. This is not right. He's done too much for music to be in this position. I find it absolutely appalling, right? Which is what inspired me to put this video out, and I hope there's enough here that will click in the link below and go and give Bill Laswell some money to keep this guy going. We can't lose this guy. We can't lose his studio. We can't lose creatively what he's done. So, who is Bill Laswell? Right, I'm going to do a whistle-stop tour of who Bill Laswell is now. So, Bill Laswell emerges as a very young guy in the mid-70s, right? In New York at the time. He was pulled in by David Allen from Gong. And David Allen had moved to New York and wanted to put together a New York gong, you know, a gong based in New York. And he went out and tried to find some cutting-edge guys. And he found Bill Laswell was one of the guys he found. Also, a guy called Michael Beinhorn that went on to produce the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But let's just keep focusing on Laswell. And they made an album called New York Gong. And the band that was formed around that carried on going, and they formed a band called Material. Now, this is where I come in. Early 80s, I'm looking through the jazz section in my local record shop, and in there was this album that I've pulled out. Now, this is one of the most important albums in my development as a musician. So this is Secret Life by Material, and that's basically the band that was on that New York Gong album. So I saw this, and it didn't look like, look at that, that does not look like your average Spyro Gyra or John Patitucci album, you know, just like a David Sanborn album, does it? I saw that, and that looked more like a sort of gothic, electronic, you know, new wave album perhaps. And I thought, this is interesting, so I thought I'd buy it. It's a double album, and what this is, it actually collects together 2 EPs by Material, Temporary Music 1 and Temporary Music 2. When I took this home, I was astonished. For me, this is equal to the Mahavishnu Orchestra. To me, if you're buying fusion albums in the 70s, and then you buy In a Mountain Flame, 1971, you suddenly hear this raw, in your face, you know, challenge to the status quo, you know, what jazz is. It's a groundbreaking album, and that really dictates to me the best of what happened in fusion in the 70s. This is the equivalent of this. This is free-flowing jazz. It's got jazz musicians on it, but this is post-punk, post-new wave jazz, right? And there's an immediacy and simplicity to this music that I found absolutely incredible. Also, it's so cool. When I first heard this, you know, as a kid, right, and I've held this here because I want it to be the thumbnail for my video, so I can't hold it there anymore, can I? This album, when I was a kid, all my friends were listening to Bauhaus, and they were listening to like Sisters of Mercy and the Smiths and the Cure, right? And I was there listening to David Sanborn and, you know, like Pat Metheny and Alan Holdsworth, and I felt a bit disconnected. When I bought this album, I can remember having it on, and a couple of my friends came round and they were like, oh my God, what is this? And they were blown away by it, and they were not jazz fans. But to me, it was also jazz. Most of the stuff on there is instrumental, and it's got a ton of soloing. Bill Laswell with Material was groundbreaking in bringing in different genres. At this time, he's also working with Herbie Hancock, and he's creating the track Rocket. And there's an example of him taking Herbie Hancock and introducing him to hip hop. But not just hip hop, but cutting edge hip hop. So Laswell at this time, he's got cutting edge hip hop, new wave, punk, fusion, world music, jazz. All that stuff's in there. And one of the things he starts to do that's very interesting is really crashing genres together. On the Material album One Down, he actually does a sort of R&B ballad which pairs a very young Whitney Houston with Archie Shepp, the free jazz saxophone player. And this really sets the stall out of Laswell, almost acting like a Miles Davis character. And what he's doing is creating new forms of music by putting disparate musicians together, but using cutting-edge technology, recording technology, to manipulate them and to create new forms of music. This to me is absolutely groundbreaking. If you check out any of the Laswell albums, and the thing is that he's making literally hundreds and hundreds of albums. There's very few people who are going to be able to get to the back end of what Bill Laswell did artistically. I've just gone and grabbed a few that may whet your appetite. I've just got a whole bunch here that I'm going to grab. This is completely random. If you want something that's a little bit more organised, go and check my big Bill Laswell video out that's nearly an hour long. But let's see what we've got here. So what's this? Praxis. Right, this is the third album, Metatron. What's Praxis? Praxis is a super group that he put together that originally featured Buckethead, the speed metal guitarist on guitar, Bootsy Collins and Bernie Worrell from Parliament Funkadelic, a turntablist called AF Next Man Flip, bringing in all the hip hop, Brain, who is the drummer from Primus, and getting him in the studio, letting them improvise and creating this sort of Parliament Funkadelic industrial metal free jazz insanity. This is the third album. On here, we just pared down to the trio of Bill Laswell, Buckethead and Brain. So this is like a power trio. This is like Cream in the future. Absolutely incredible. Praxis, if you're a fusion fan, you haven't listened to Praxis, you're missing out, right? What have we got here? Blacktronic Science. This is an album he's produced by Bernie Worrell. This is an incredible funky stew. It's so much better than the original Parliament Funkadelic albums. It just hits you hard. Who has he got on here? Bernie Worrell, George Clinton, Bootsy Collins, Gary Mudbone Cooper, Maceo Parker, Fred Wesley. Right, basically he's assembled Parliament Funkadelic. They're all there. Plus himself on loops, beats, sound effects, samples. I am dying big on sort of world percussion and Sly Dunbar. Right, he's taken a drum loop from Sly Dunbar, from Sly and Robbie. Laswell produced Sly and Robbie. He had a hit record in the 80s called Boots, which is one of the great singles from the 1980s. He also produced Album of Public Image Limited, one of the greatest albums from the 80s, which pits Ginger Baker, Tony Williams, Steve Vai, Jonas Hellborn, Zachary Hussain, all of them on the one album with John Lydon. Is it punk? Is it prog? Is it jazz? Is it reggae? Is it world music? Absolutely incredible. This album is a must for Tony Williams fans, right? Not only did Laswell produce the last great fusion band of Tony Williams, which is Arcana. If you haven't heard Arcana, go and check it out. This is one of the great fusion bands that nobody knows about, which features Tony Williams with Buckethead, with Pharoah Sanders. I just keep going on, but also on here there's an organ trio, or maybe just an organ duo of Bernie Worrell and Tony Williams, and it features some incredible playing of Tony Williams. Just before Tony Williams died, he was on the turn. He'd done a lot of acoustic jazz, and he seemed to be returning back to fusion, almost heavy metal, and the only place to go and find it is on some of these Laswell albums, right? Bill Laswell, this is the guy. He's just a monument in terms of music. He's just a giant, absolute giant. I cannot tell you. He's so important to the development and history of music. Horses and Trees. This is the album by Ginger Baker, where Bill Laswell tricked Ginger Baker into making a solo album. And this, if you want to hear Ginger Baker at his best, this is incredible, and it's a sort of world music stroke, sort of Americana stroke, the heaviest rock drumming you've ever heard in your life, you know, all mixed together on an incredible album, where Bill Laswell pulled Ginger Baker out, told him he was doing a session, got him to drum on what he thought was a session, then stripped all that stuff off and then overdubbed back into it to create this incredible album, Horses and Trees. These are just, I just went and grabbed a few. This is by no means representational of Bill Laswell. Write some jazz albums. Akira Sakata, Mooka. Ornette Coleman-esque jazz harmolodics featuring Laswell, Akira Sakata on saxophone, and the incredible Ronald Shannon Jackson. Shannon Jackson had an incredible fusion band in the 1980s called the Decoding Society that also featured Vernon Reid, that went on to form Living Colour. And who produced that album? Bill Laswell. This is why he's not a household name, because he's done too much. That's the bottom line, right? I'm going to whiz through these because I need it at the end of this video. Last Exit, one of the most brutal free jazz, heavy metal, punk bands of the 1980s, with the incredible Sonny Sharrock and Peter Broadsman and Ronald Shannon Jackson. My God, approach with care. Right, Material, The Third Power, which is dub reggae meets world music meets Parliament Funkadelic. Right, perhaps one of the greatest Parliament Funkadelic statements, the huge double album Funkonomicon, which features all the Parliament guys flat out over a double album. Absolutely one of the most funkiest albums you're ever going to hear. Right, what's this? Right, Imaginary Cuba. Remember Buena Vista Social Club, when they went and repackaged all that Cuban music? Well, that's it done properly. This is Bill Laswell stalking the streets of Cuba with a recorder, basically recording real street musicians, real Cuban musicians, then taking it back to studio, and then with sampling technology, stitching that together in an incredible Latin American mix. That's incredible. Bill Laswell made solo albums. Here's his second solo album, Hear No Evil, which is a sort of very Indian classical music meets dub, and with Americana thrown in at the same time. Right, he produced Herbie Hancock's last great album, Future Shock, which is pits Herbie Hancock against technology, which is always when Herbie Hancock's at his best, especially when he's got Laswell to oversee it. Right, and so I think I've gone through the whole lot there. Yeah, I'm going to stop now. Right, so if you're a Bill Laswell fan and you're watching this video, right, click on the link below. and chuck some of your money his way. You know, let's look after this guy who's given so much to music and looked after so many musicians. Like I said, a lot of these free jazz musicians and a lot of the P-Funk guys would not have survived without Laswell, you know, with his studio and his ability to make albums with them and support them. Right? And if you're not a Bill Laswell fan and you don't feel inclined to go and fund some guy you've never heard of, please go and check him out now. The next stage is this video here, which is my big, you know, analysis of Bill Laswell. So go and have a look at that. And again, thank you for watching. I know some of you have noticed I've had my hair cut. Look at that, it's very short now. It had to happen. So this video is also premiering my haircut, so I hope you like it. I'm not going to tell you why I had it cut. It just happened. I went to have a trim, and before you know it, it ended up like this. Anyway, check out the video, and you know, we can have a few funny comments, I assume, about my haircut. We'll see you on the next one, and thanks for watching. Bye.